everybody, I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is Congressman Ben Cline. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me.
Glad to be with you.
We have an important conversation today. The House voted earlier this week to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. First, what's your reaction?
Well, it was a long time in coming, and it took one false start before we got this impeachment across the finish line, but we're not done yet because Mr. Mayorkas continues to ignore federal laws regarding border policy, and it's resulting in quite a lot of destruction here in this country. So we need him removed. So we look forward to the Senate trial, and hopefully that will be successful.
I do want to talk about the Senate trial in a little bit. You were selected impeachment manager, but before we do that, I don't need to underscore to you the gravity of this move. This is historic. It's the second impeachment of a cabinet secretary ever, the first one since the 1800s. So you obviously disagree, or you're dissatisfied rather, with Mayorkas' performance, but what qualifies as an impeachable offense here?
Well, when we have laws on the books, when Congress has enacted laws regarding parole, regarding detention, and we have executive branch officials who willfully ignore those laws and, in fact, in contravention of direct orders from judges, refuse to enforce those orders, then we have no choice. We have to take action because the American people are not being protected and our national security is not being protected.
I know you were a practicing attorney before you're a member of Congress, and a handful of your Republican colleagues voted against impeaching Mayorkas. As you know, there were three of them. One of them was Congressman Ken Buck, and he said this, quote, "I prosecuted for 25 years. I know what a high crime and misdemeanor are, and I know that this doesn't qualify. This is a policy difference." What's your reaction there? Because a Republican colleague is saying this doesn't meet the bar of a impeachment. Rather, it doesn't meet the bar of an impeachment. It's instead just a policy difference.
Well, I would disagree. I would say that that we have a disagreement about what a high crime or misdemeanor is and what it was when the Constitution was written. Essentially, when you have officials who swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, to enforce the laws of that are passed by Congress and signed into law by the president, then you can't willfully ignore those laws, pick and choose which you're going to enforce and which you don't. If we had a transportation secretary who all of a sudden decided not to enforce our FAA traffic safety laws and planes started colliding and crashing, you would want to remove that individual and start things back on the right track. If you had food safety laws that were being ignored or not enforced, and all of a sudden children started dying because of what they're eating, you would want to correct for that by removing the official who is in charge, who is responsible for that destruction. So what we have are we have fentanyl crossing the border, killing children across the country. We have children being trafficked, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, human trafficking. We have crimes being committed. We have it is remarkable the destruction that an open border causes. We have people on the terrorist watch list coming into the country. So our national security is being endangered. We have to stop it, and the appropriate way to stop it is by removing the official who is encouraging it.
Congressman, if you could, I would like you to lay it out for us like you were going to in the impeachment trial. What specifically did Mayorkas do that qualifies as a high crime and misdemeanor here?
Well, you have several instances, as I mentioned, with regard to detention, where our detention laws direct him to detain those individuals who are here illegally or who are requesting asylum pending their asylum hearing. You also have parole provisions of the law, which are designed for individual cases, but he has changed the law by himself and applied them to large groups of people, classifications of people, so that he can allow more to be paroled into the interior of the country. Now we hear that he is releasing more individuals from detention who are being detained, and those kinds of actions, ignoring the laws of the land that Congress has enacted, require us to take action and remove him from office.
Another one of your colleagues who supported or did not support the impeachment is Congressman Tom McClintock, and he said this last week after the vote initially failed. Quote, "This border crisis cannot be fixed by replacing one left-wing official with another." To his point of just replacing one Biden appointee with another, how does impeaching Mayorkas make the country safer?
Well, what we're doing is raising to a point in the public's eye how seriously we are taking this issue, and it's a reflection of how seriously the public is taking this issue. This is a top issue for the public. The House has made it a priority, and the Senate will have to make it a priority because once they start an impeachment trial, they are not allowed to conduct any other business. So the Senate hopefully will take it seriously, act on it in the near future, and this will hopefully send the message to the president that we must have action, it must be immediate, and it must rectify this blatant disregard for the laws of the land and the people who enacted them.
What other action will Congress take to secure the border aside from this impeachment vote? Because as we know, the bipartisan border bill did fail in the Senate. H.R. 2 passed in the House, party lines only. It had no Democratic support. So can we expect any border legislation soon?
I believe you can, and I believe that there is room between. H.R. 2 was a solid piece of legislation. The fact that Democrats rejected it shows their dedication to the open borders. But in the Senate, you had essentially a codification of the open border policy. To call it bipartisan, really only 5 Republicans crossed party lines to vote with the Democrats. You had 44 about 44 who voted against this legislation moving forward. So it was not a bipartisan bill really per se. So we are hopeful that we can get legislation that takes the open border problem seriously. If we want to start from H.R. 2 and negotiate with the president, Speaker Johnson has asked for a meeting with the president. He has refused time and time again. The president is demanding action on things from Ukraine to funding his government agencies, and yet is unwilling to negotiate on what is one of our top issues, the border. So he has got to come to the table, and simply putting out there a partisan bill, in my view, that does nothing but cement in place these open border policies is not going to get us where we need to be.
Let's look into the future a bit here for this impeachment trial. You were selected to be one of the impeachment managers in the trial in the Senate against Mayorkas. First, what's your reaction to that appointment?
Well, it's an honor to be appointed. I serve on the Judiciary Committee, so I was present for the impeachments of former President Trump, and I actually have been a prosecutor. So it puts me hopefully in a good position to prepare for this trial and look forward to representing the House's position that Mayorkas has ignored the laws of the U.S. and needs to be removed.
When can we expect an impeachment trial here? Because as we know, there is a looming government shutdown. Is the Senate going to deal with that first?
My understanding is that they are looking at dates. It is up to the Senate when they will and how they will handle the articles of impeachment. But we are both out of Washington for the next week. And so at the very least, nothing will happen next week until we return around the 27th. And at that point, my understanding is that both the Senate and House will be back. The House will transmit the articles to the Senate, and then it will be up to the Senate to determine how and in what manner they consider those articles.
I was lucky enough last week to have a conversation with one of your colleagues, Congressman Tim Burchett, and he voted for the impeachment. He told me that he thinks it's likely to fail in the Senate. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't want to presuppose anything. It is a majority of the president's party, and so the idea that the president's party is going to be swayed from their support for him is not impossible to overcome, but it does present a challenge, and so we are ready for that challenge. But we understand that when the eyes of the country are on the Senate will take this issue seriously, and they will take the evidence that we present seriously about the impact of these of this open border policy of this administration and the failure of Mayorkas to actually enforce the laws of the U.S.
Senator James Lankford did say that, to use the terms of the House, this would probably be dead on arrival when it gets to the Senate. Do you think, or do you know of any Democratic senators that your argument could change their mind?
Well, I would hope that my home state senators, Virginia Senators Warner and Kaine, would look at the impact of this open border policy on the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have had in this country over 8 million illegals come across. That is bigger than the entire Commonwealth. And so we've seen what happens when illegal immigrants drunk drive and kill people in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So lives are being lost to illegal immigrants in Virginia. We have fentanyl killing kids in Virginia. We have impacts on our education system, our transportation systems, our housing systems. All of these are great burdens on the Commonwealth, and they were both governors. So hopefully they recognize the harmful impact, the costly impact that open border policies have on every state, including Virginia, turning us and every other state into essentially border communities.
Congressman, I have the privilege of talking to a lot of your colleagues in recent weeks, really over the past year, and everyone has said the border is a top issue. There is a crisis at the border. Although the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas has been criticized as being performative, trying to give President Biden not a win during an election year on a hot button issue, what do you say to those criticisms?
Well, we take it seriously. We are using the tools at our disposal, and those tools include impeachment and removal. The Constitution is very clear. High crimes and misdemeanors should include the failure to enforce the laws of the United States that result in destructive impacts in our communities. And so we see these destructive impacts every day, and it's our responsibility to take action. I think that for those who treat it as a political move or a performance, then that's at to their detriment, because the American people want to see action. And whether it's through our spending laws, making sure that we actually change our policies to require detention, require parole, and through the removal of those individuals who ignore those laws, we have to use every tool at our disposal to correct for this failure to act on the part of the administration.
Congressman Ben Cline, I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you for your time. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks so much.